Hey everybody, welcome to the Gentleman Scholars Club. The topic of today's video is how to wear a peak lapel jacket in a way that doesn't come across as being businesslike. And I'll be featuring this jacket from Spier and Mackay's 2021 Spring and Summer Collection, navy blue, light twill with a peak lapel. So the peak lapel is definitely associated with business and the power suit in particular, going back to the 80s, probably before, and until now. This is because the peak lapel is by definition more formal than the notch lapel. And it's also more aggressive. It tends to widen your chest and has basically arrows pointing outward. So that is kind of an aggressive design element. For that reason, it is associated with Wall Street types, with CEOs, alpha males in business, and so on. And it's difficult to wear the peak lapel then for more casual uses. So I'll give you some ideas on how you might achieve that. I don't actually own any other peak lapel jackets single-breasted except for this one. Back in 2015, when I first started getting interested in classic menswear again, I bought my first suit from Suit Supply, and it was actually a peak lapel. It was in their Washington cut, which they still make today, and the Washington is extra slim and has some padding in the shoulders and peak lapels. So I bought this not really understanding anything about classic menswear. It just looked nice when I tried it on in the store, and didn't really work for me because I don't need to wear a suit for business, for my job. And I certainly don't need to wear one that is that business-centered and corporate in terms of the overall approach. So I ended up selling that off. It was also a pinstripe in a blue-gray color. The pinstripes even adding to that sort of corporate sense of the outfit. I do have a couple of peak lapel things because of my recent foray into the world of double-breasted sport coats. By definition, double-breasted sport coats or jackets come with peak lapels. And if you think about the double-breasted, it is also more formal than a single-breasted, so that kind of fits, or definitely fits, with the notion that peak lapels are more formal in terms of what they project. So I had my eyes on this Spier and Mackay jacket on their website for quite some time, but I wasn't sure that I wanted it because of the peak lapels. Like many of you, I'm curious when I see things, stylistic details in menswear that I might want to try just to experiment and see how they look on me. But because of the associations with business and because of my previous fiasco with the peak lapel suit, I wasn't sure. However, it went on sale recently, and there were also only 2 left in my size, the 38 Contemporary, so I thought I'd pull the trigger and try it out. And I think it works well overall. With a peak lapel, I would say you do have to fancy things up a little bit, because I tried this initially with a linen cotton blend shirt, and it didn't really stand up to the peak lapels. The style of it, and being a light twill as well, made it more formal, and in juxtaposition with a shirt that was kind of rumpled and casual, the two didn't go well together. So I would say you have to elevate your shirt game, and I put on here a standard sort of poplin shirt, do a pinpoint or a poplin or something like that, rather than the linen blend, so that it matches the level of formality of the rest of the outfit. You might even do something like a light herringbone shirt and perhaps something with a bit of sheen on it, like a Royal Oxford, which would also combine nicely with the level created by the twill and by the presence of the peak lapels. So you do always have to account for the peak lapels when thinking about how to style this. However, with that said, there are several features of the jacket that bring it down just a little bit and make it more accessible for smart casual wear. One of those aspects is the white buttons, and just by having contrasting buttons that are quite obviously so, it lowers the formality of the jacket. It makes it less businesslike. You don't usually find business wear, things that you would put on for work, that have these contrasting buttons, which make it more showy, make it a little bit more brash, a little bit more bold, which is actually suited for my personality overall. It also is not entirely a pure navy. Now, navy can exist in a huge gradation of colors, right, from kind of a dark midnight to tending toward mid-blue. The darker it is, the more formal it is, generally speaking, And if you think of business suits, they tend to be more of that somber and sober navy. This has a little bit more of an electric blue to it, which you probably can tell in the image or in the video. And so that, again, makes it less formal. It also has these open quarters. And if you're interested, you can check out my other video on open versus closed quarters. So these cutaway quarters, open quarters, again, give it that rakish attitude, gives it a little bit more panache, which again lowers the level of formality. So even though you do have to wear kind of a shirt that stands up in terms of quality, smoothness, and so on to the peak lapels, it also has these other features which prevent it from drifting into the world of business. I'm wearing this particular outfit in a simple type of combination, the standard gray and navy. It's a bit lighter than other grays you might wear as trousers. And I'm wearing a white shirt, but it has a one-piece collar, which you may have seen in my other videos I'm really enamored of these days. The one-piece collar, I think, adds that sort of, again, rakishness or boldness to the outfit and is less formal than, doing a spread collar or something like that. The trousers just a little bit lighter, as I said, than a mid-gray, and so that goes with the blue being a little bit lighter than the standard navy. I didn't want to do too much with it otherwise, just wearing a standard white handkerchief, and this is a linen, white with a navy trim in this case, but you could flip it and do a solid white as well. But I wouldn't necessarily put on something that has a different color to it or a pattern, though you might try that. It's just not my particular style. So altogether, this outfit has what I would consider a resort vibe to it, and it's definitely very Italian. I had originally thought it was their Neapolitan cut because of the open quarters, but it only has 2 buttons, whereas the Neapolitan cut has 3, one of them rolled under the lapels. So it looks a little bit like the Neapolitan cut, but the 2 buttons and the peak lapels make it something different. So you might call it Neapolitan inspired, and I do see it as definitely having a strong Italian flavor. I said to myself that this is something you would wear for an aperitivo in piazza. If you want to go out and have a drink in the afternoon in an Italian piazza while you're on holiday, this would be something to wear. And if you're not in Italy on vacation, then you could wear it for a night out, dinner date, something like that, going to a party where you dress up things a little bit more. So those are some thoughts on the general style. I wanted to consider as well how you might match the jacket in being brash and bold while not going over a certain line. And doing what I'm going to do next will also put this into the category of definitely not business. So let's take a look at another outfit combination and see what you think. So the previous outfit I wore was rather staid or conservative, relatively speaking, because it featured a plain white shirt and mid-gray trousers, which are part of a standard business uniform, but a little bit different because of the jacket and because the color of the trousers was slightly lighter than your mid-gray. The principle behind going with a more reserved outfit was that the jacket would do the talking. Right? The jacket is bold, as I said earlier, because of the peak lapels, the contrasting white buttons, and the open quarters. So I don't want to have something else equally bold competing with the outside featuring the jacket. So you want to reach a sort of equilibrium between the elements in your clothing to create that sort of balance. Bolder jacket, more conservative for the rest of your pieces. I also wore a plain pocket square there, and as I said, I didn't want to bring in something that had a pattern, again, to not compete with the jacket. However, I also said that this jacket has really screams Italian summer, and so I thought I'd take it up a notch and see how far we could go while still maintaining that balance. And I think this shirt, which is from Cordone 1956, an Italian shirt maker, enables this to be brought up to another level of showiness, but also adding more casualness to the outfit, and again, not crossing a certain line of being too over the top. Features a blue awning stripe or butcher stripe, however you want to characterize it, and it's made in the Giro Inglese weave, so an open weave. It has white buttons, contrasting buttons similar to these, and they are also mother of pearl, and they're sewn with the Zampa di Gallina style of stitching, which looks like a little hen's foot or chicken's foot, and so very Italian as well. Even though it is bold, it has the same color as the jacket in terms of the blue, very, very close together. And the boldness of the shirt is actually minimized or mitigated by the boldness of the jacket. and vice versa. So they're again maintaining that sort of balance between them in my view. If I wore this shirt alone without the jacket and just the trousers, it would look even more assertive, but the jacket covering it reduces the volume of stripes and makes it look a little bit more restrained. Likewise, the jacket, being bold and sort of electric, is also brought down a notch because the shirt is also kind of bold, and therefore they balance out. So it is possible to bring in more exciting pieces at the same time while not being over the top. And again, think about your purpose, right? You're going to wear this out to a resort. You're going to wear it out to dinner on the weekend or something like that. You have that opportunity to dress in a little more a bold way. And again, you're not emphasizing the business connections as you do so. I didn't wear a pocket square here, you'll notice. Before I had a plain white pocket square. And that's based on the idea that you should have one element, again, that really gets the viewer's attention. Here, it's the shirt and jacket sort of combine to do that, but the stripes of the shirt, I think, are the most noticeable. So if I added a pocket square here, whether it's white or with a pattern, it would, again, compete and be just going a little too far, in my opinion. There was the old statement from Coco Chanel, speaking of women, that they should remove one accessory after they dress up. And that's sort of what I have in mind here for menswear. But think about what you're wearing and emphasize one element rather than adding more and then risking the look going over the top and beyond to another extreme. The reason I hesitated to buy this jacket initially was I wasn't sure entirely how to combine it because of the white buttons. I would say it should have something white in it. And in the first look you saw I had a white shirt and a white pocket square. Alternatively, you can wear it with white trousers, as I have here, and then you can do something else on top, like this shirt, or something that like a light blue. A light blue shirt might also work with maybe finer stripes or as a solid. So those are some styling possibilities. With this type of jacket with open quarters, I would also recommend having higher rise trousers or high-waisted trousers. And as you can see here, these are from Berg & Berg. They're flat-fronted, high-rise, and they don't show the gap of the shirt. Right? This area here you want to avoid showing. Right? It's a transition between the buttoning point and the trousers. You want to keep that clean so you don't see the shirt peeking through like this. These days people just don't care about it, and it's not a big deal, but if you think about more classical, traditional, stylistic rules, you want to try to avoid that to create that sort of smooth transition. And high-rise trousers help you achieve that because of the open quarters being covered by the waistband. So I do recommend those if that's amenable to you. The thing about peak lapel jackets as well is that they do require you to be sort of outgoing and bold and unafraid to try them. I don't think that can be avoided. So embrace that if it's part of your personality, and definitely go for wearing peak lapel in something like this, which is, again, less business-oriented. I would also add one caveat, and that is if your body type is characterized by narrower shoulders, perhaps you want to avoid peak lapels, because by the nature of the peak, they come out all the way to where your shoulders end, to where the sleeve head begins, or the arm's eye of the jacket, the armholes. And because of that, they tend to minimize the width of your shoulders and maximize your chest. The sweep of the lapels creates a visual impression that your chest is wider, but also could potentially make your shoulders look narrower. So if you already have narrower shoulders, I recommend perhaps against the peak lapel and go with a notch, which always has a smaller, or most of the time has a smaller width, a narrower width than the peak lapel does. This from Spier and Mackay doesn't really have a large curve. If the peak lapels have a wide curve and a belly to them, they may even minimize your shoulder width more. These are fairly straight. There's a slight curvature here, but fairly straight, so it doesn't really have that effect too much. But again, if your body conformation, your physique has narrower shoulders, I would recommend thinking about it beforehand. Try it on. Definitely try it on and see how you look, keeping that in mind. If you have narrow shoulders and also wider hips, I would really recommend against peak lapels. because that combination of the shoulders being de-emphasized by peak lapels and your hips being wider will give you this sort of A shape, which you don't really want. You want to go for a V shape, which is characteristic of most menswear, and that is sort of the look that tailoring is trying to create for most guys. So if you want to aim for that V shape, if you're sort of A-shaped already, you want to try to keep that as straight as possible and go toward that V. So wider hips and narrow shoulders. Think twice about peak lapels. So I hope that was useful in terms of showing you a couple of looks and how to dress down a peak lapel jacket. If you like the video, like it officially on YouTube and follow us at the Gentleman Scholars Club for more brand information, style tips, and history and information about traditional menswear. Thanks for viewing.